Hey there, Nicki Traikos here. I am going to give you a little update on some watercolor art supplies that I'm really loving and a few extra things. I feel like doing these little sharesy type of supply videos are really important because as you grow and evolve as an artist, there are things that become a little bit more important to you. Maybe you have confidence to try some new things and your personal preferences change. And I think as I create things like books and classes and even my own art, I'm looking for ways to really expand my personal art practice and how I can have my art supplies and the investment that I make in my art supplies really work for my art practice. So my objective with sharing art supplies is always to offer you products that I would use over and over and over again. So things that I would invest in again as they run out, things that I really enjoy working with. So if I'm looking at paints, the pigment quality is really good, the longevity is important to me, and the cost or investment is worth it. Because sometimes, especially nowadays, I feel like there's so many different brands, there's so many types of art supplies, and if you're like me, you want to dabble in a bunch of different types of art making, so that can become costly, it can become a problem if you're trying to store everything, and then sometimes I feel like we get overwhelmed. So if we accumulate too many art supplies, you actually might stop using them because if you're like me and have collected a bunch of sweatshirts and comfy casual clothes, you have your two or three favorites that you go back to again and again and again, and the others just sort of hang in your closet. And I know I've used this reference before, but I think it's totally relatable. So if you have a variety of art palettes, color palettes, and tubes of paint, and you want to grab maybe something new that you saw a different artist use, but you haven't connected with that art supply, it might just sit there. So is your investment worthwhile? Is it supporting your art practice? Is it allowing you to grow and feel fulfilled as an artist? Those are the things that I think about when I share these types of videos. And if you're looking maybe for a new art product or to solve a problem within your art practice through using art supplies, then I hope this video inspires you. It's going to be a little bit longer than usual, but I have pulled out some of my new favorites that I haven't shared before that I thought would be really fun. And everything you see are things that I have pulled out because I love them. So I'm not being sponsored for this. No one is paying me for this. I will have links to an Amazon because I get asked that all the time. But if you're looking for art supplies, please go to your local art supply shop. I say this in all of my classes and my books. Please go to your local art supply shop, support them. They're often owned by small business owners. They have a passion for art and art supplies and for artists as well. And I know my personal art supply shops are really mindful about the types of products that they're bringing in and keeping in mind, different price points and different levels of artistry and different goals for you as an artist. So support them, speak to them, talk to them about maybe the things that you're looking for, enjoy the connection and conversation, and enjoy shopping for your art supplies in person. Okay? If you are new to my space, welcome. I do teach online classes and I have books specifically around watercolor. Watercolor Made Simple is my current book that I have available that will take you through the process where I talk a lot about different colors that I enjoy using and art supplies. My online classes, Watercolor Made Simple, again, my most popular one, will show you some supplies that I've used over the years. I've updated the supply video for that. But again, having this opportunity to come together and show you some new things, I think is really important. If you have been learning with me, maybe Canson watercolor paper is something that I've mentioned as a beginner. My goal when I mentioned paper like that is to get you painting. Often when we think about watercolor paper, we can get a little bit nervous about using the paper up because it can be one of the more costly investments in your art supply kit. It will yield the best results if you can invest a bit more, but it's most often a one-time use thing. So use a piece of paper, you can maybe flip it over for some practice work and use the back, but then it's done. Whereas if you're investing in a palette, you buy it once and you use it again and again. If you're investing in paints, You buy it once and you can use it for a very long time. So paper will be probably the one aspect of your toolkit that will cost a little bit more money. And I want to encourage you to have options for when you're just practicing brushstroke. So again, if you're doing the single stroke leaves with me, or you are creating your color palettes and you're just swatching, you can look for paper that has a blend of pulp and cotton. So I'm just going to double check. So this is a Winsor Newton pad. It's 25% cotton. It is a little bit better quality than, let's say, the Canson XL, which is full pulp paper. You can still use it for practice to kind of build that confidence, but it won't yield the same results as a full cotton paper. So I just want to show you some options. And again, without having to go into too much depth, I'm hoping you have a bit of experience with me, you understand your art supplies, and maybe you're just looking to elevate them a little bit. So the cover of a block of paper, so this is a fixed block of watercolor paper, will tell you a lot. So look for any indication of the cotton percentage in the paper. This says 25% cotton. If it doesn't say anything at all about how much cotton is in the paper, this is another Winsor Newton one. So this is my favorite paper that I paint on. It says 100% cotton on it. Know that the paper is probably pulp. Unless it states that it's cotton, it probably isn't. So you've seen these before if you've taken my classes, Winsor Newton, cold press, although I've been playing with hot press paper too. So hot press has a smoother texture, cold press has a little bit more texture. Hot press is smooth, cold press has texture. And then even within the cold press, there is rough and fine texture. It really depends on your painting experience and what your end goals are. I prefer the texture of paper. I love paper. I love the tactile feel of paper. So I do want a bit of that texture when I am painting. I don't love a ton of texture. So I know there's some Fabriano that offer it's 100% cotton and with high texture or rough texture. It's just something that I don't enjoy painting on at the moment, especially because I've been scanning a lot of my artwork. And if I scan my artwork, I do want there to be a slight bit of a textury surface, but I don't want it to be too noticeable. Okay, so next up, Hennemeal is another paper manufacturer that I really love. Again, it says right on the cover, 100% cotton. I really love their cold press as well. I'm going to see what actually is in this pad because I haven't pulled it out in a bit. Oh, I haven't painted in it. Oh, maybe I have. I digress. I'm just going to see if there's any paintings I can show you. But it's a really nice cottony texture. I love the absorbency. I feel like it suits my process for how I paint using watercolor. And it's a brand that I really love too. So Hennemeal for the win. Now you're probably familiar with this cover. I feel like it's very iconic. It's the Arches or Arche. I believe Arche is how it should be pronounced anyway. It is their cold press, again, really high quality. And all of these three different pads of paper that I'm showing you are around the same quality. So you're gonna get 100% cotton, acid-free. The weight of the paper, 300 GMs, 300 GMs. I'm just gonna confirm. They're all 300 GMs. Yep, so they're all basically the same quality of paper. Maybe there'll be slight variations in texture. The overall finish and feel when you're painting on them changes. So the Arche paper is very, very thirsty. So you require a lot of water to paint on it. A lot of artists love that. They love using this brand of paper. I've wanted to fall in love with it. It's good quality paper. It's a great quality paper. It just doesn't suit my personal painting style. So if you start to switch up your paper and you're noticing there's a little bit of friction, you're not sure why your paint isn't flowing or what's happening, it's because you've changed the surface, your substrate. So you want to make adjustments in how much water is in your mixing puddle, how much water is on your brush, and give yourself time to adapt to that new paper. I am a firm believer when you find a product that works for you, that you've developed a technique for at a real comfort level, stick with it. You don't need to go out and buy the next best thing, the next best thing. I feel like we fall into that trap. I do as well. I have so much art supplies that I just don't have time to use them all, and then it creates a little bit of frustration because I just want to paint and use everything that I have, and I want that for you too. Okay, This is something that I have been exploring and I'm really excited to share with you, and I'm going to share more in depth in my new class that I'm developing. If you haven't subscribed to my newsletter updates, make sure you do, because I always launch to my VIP newsletter list first to give you the best of the best. But this is an aqua board. So there are a variety of aqua boards that I've been testing. I'm going to grab one. This is by Fredericks, and it's a canvas board made for water-soluble paints, water-based paints. And I'll link to it again. I have a list, a watercolor list on Amazon that you can follow. So I'm working on some new personal art. I've been selling my art again, something that I stepped away from a few years back and I've been missing. So I'm really working on developing that part of my art practice, my business, who I am as an artist. And I'm loving exploring some new substrates to work on. So it's canvas board. It's very different from working on paper, but if you're looking to maybe expand and work outside of your comfort zone when it comes to watercolor, or try something new, look for aqua boards and go to your local art supply store. Speak to the owner and ask them what they recommend, because there are a variety. I've been investing in a few different brands just to test them out, because I feel like that's something that I love to do as an instructor and someone who teaches art. But look for different substrates that you can paint on. And now that I'm speaking of different substrates, another product that I'm really leaning into as I'm working on my personal practice, and again thinking about the new class that I'm developing, is watercolor ground. So if you've ever worked with acrylics or oil painting, you know that there are different types of medium. I'm going to open this fresh. I just ordered it. There we go. So it's very creamy, and it's a liquid-based primer that you can put on multiple substrates so that you can use your water-soluble medium. So your watercolor, gouache, inks, you name it. And if you are looking again to maybe paint on canvases, birch boards, I don't even know what other substrates you want to practice and play on. I love to paint on old book pages. So similar to using a gesso, if you work with acrylic paints, there are mediums for watercolor paints that I have just started exploring and really playing around with, and this is one of them. So watercolor ground creates a nice base layer on substrates that aren't designed for water-soluble paints like watercolor, and it allows you to paint over top of them. I am going to demo this product again in a new class that I'm developing, but I wanted to show it to you in case you're looking for maybe you're in a bit of a creative rut and you need a little bit something to help you get going. Okay, that's something that I definitely would recommend picking up and playing around with. Not a big investment. This is by Golden. I know Daniel Smith has some. Who else did I see? There was a third company that had some. And then I just kind of looked at reviews, price point for me to play around with Golden's ground. So it's called Watercolor Ground Medium. Oh, sorry, this isn't Golden, this is Core. So Golden and Daniel Smith, and this is Core. So I'll let you know how that goes. So excited, can you tell? I love art supplies. When I was at my local art supply store, so Gortzman's in Toronto, we celebrated my book anniversary. It was a real fun event. Jackie, the owner, recommended this palette to me, and I wasn't convinced at first. So if you, again, have taken a class with me, you know I love to work on ceramic palettes or even porcelain plates. This is a plastic palette, but it's a heavy plastic, and I wasn't sure about the size of the wells to create my watercolor mixes, but I love the amount of wells there are, so I can create some sort of secondary mixes when I have put my watercolor paints into the palette, and I can reactivate it. But then it comes with this great lid where I have a mixing tray that I can use. It's not massive and it's portable. So I'm just playing around with this one a little bit more. I know they have different sizes, but I think it's a good investment if you're looking for a new palette that you want to spread out on and you want to be able to mix some colors on. Fits together and you can take it with you. It's a bit heavy, so for travel, it's not the lightest or most compact, but I thought I would share with it because it's new and you're probably going to see it coming up in an upcoming project. So, and then I just swatch some colors that I have in this specific palette. So again, it won't make sense to you. Here we go. Do it this way. It won't make sense to you, but these are the colors that I have in this palette, and I will stick to only using these colors for this palette. So if you're like me and work with multiple color palettes, then I'd recommend having a palette that you can work from so that you can consistently use the same colors over and over again, so you don't have to waste your watercolor paint by washing off your palette and starting fresh. Never wash off your palette if you can avoid it, because the paint there is reusable. You can use it again and again and again. Okay, so I feel like this is going on a little bit. There are two more. I'm gonna save the pencils and things like that maybe till the next video, but there are two more things that I wanna share. Over the fall, I was able to visit France to host my first art retreat. It was amazing. I got to do some shopping and traveling and meet new creatives, create new memories and lots of art. If you want to travel with me, I still have spots left for Portugal. We're going in October 2025. It's going to be amazing. But these pencils that I've fallen in love with are watercolor pencils. They are by Karen Dash. I'm always bad with pronunciations, but Karen Dash. I'll spell it so that you know what I'm talking about. And I've put them in a different container just because I've bought two different sets, but they are highly pigmented, really rich, beautiful watercolor pencils. If you were looking to add watercolor pencils to your watercolor practice, you can activate them with water after you've put them down on paper. You can use them to create some dry detail, some wet detail. I love two things about it, three things maybe. The options of colors, how smooth they are. They're not waxy, they're not chalky. They've got a really beautiful consistency to work with. And then when you activate them with water, they have a really beautiful finish. And I even picked up recently, I was at a stationery supply store in Toronto actually, and I picked up a set of these bicolor pencils as well. So again, I think about portability because I like to travel a lot and I like to travel with my art supplies. So there's always an issue of space when it comes to packing. So these are a really great way if you're out on plein air sketching and want to come back in the studio or come back home and paint what you've worked on. They're a really great way to draw in your outlines, frame in what your composition is, create some tonal sketches, put in, again, your contrasting values and all of those things. And then, of course, to add some color. So not expensive, really good price point for the value of the product, which I'm really happy about, which is why I've bought a few different sets. And I actually have a different set that I could have showed you, but again, I'll save that. Okay, last up. I was in the UK. Last year was a big year of travel for me. I was in the UK last year, and if you haven't been to Choosing Keeping in London, you have to go. It is a pricier, high-end stationery with some art supply shop. It is beautiful. I feel like it's iconic. Every time I go to London, I have to stop in, and I always tell myself, you're gonna buy one more thing, just one. And I always end up having to buy a little bit more. But I have seen these Japanese watercolor sets online. I've seen other artists use them. I've always wondered what the experience is like using them. So I bought myself this set. It was expensive. Comparing prices of art supplies in this format that I already own. So it definitely was a little bit more of an investment. The color palette spoke to me. They had a few different color palettes. I love blues and greens. If you've painted with me, you know that. And it's a really interesting texture. They're creamy, so they're activated with just a bit of water. They are creamy and beautiful to work with. I love the finish of them. And I haven't finished them yet, so I don't know if I would re-buy the set, but I wonder if I can incorporate a few of the colors on my own. So I haven't investigated enough, and I can't even tell you the name of it. I think it's Gansai or Gansai Japanese watercolor. I could be wrong. I'll do some research and put it in the description for you. But if you've seen these, and you can see these are specifically designed for Choosing Keeping, but if you've seen these Japanese watercolor palettes online and you are looking to invest in a high quality art supply or pigment that is new to you, that will maybe expand a little bit of how you paint with watercolor or maybe inspire a bit of creativity, then try some new palettes. And then that way you can work within the color range. I did that while I was away actually, because I was in the UK for a bit. So I use this palette every day as my morning practice, just to play around and see what happened. And I've been using them in my landscapes. I love them. It's been really fun. You can see the painting behind me, this abstract one that's on board. Let me grab that. This is on that aqua board. It's a different brand and it's using these colors with a few others. They're just bright and beautiful, and I'm actually used to painting more muted. So I'm going to show you this. This is the contrasting side of my art making. Sometimes they're really bright, bold, and beautiful, and sometimes they're muted, desaturated, and evoke emotion. They both evoke emotion, but just different emotion. So I think it's really fun to be able to pick up a palette to help with even introducing new colors to your art making and just trying them on and seeing how they fit. So I think I'm going to stop there because I feel like this was a really a bit longer than I intended, but I again was passionate about what I pulled out for you, so I wanted to give you some options. So I'm going to close it off with one last little thing. Again, when I create these videos and I'm sharing with you art supplies, I want you to think about what your current practice looks like. Maybe if there are some things that you're feeling like stagnant energy in your practice, you're not really inspired, or you're feeling like you can't achieve something that you have in mind. It could be just working on technique. So maybe go back to one of my classes, go back to my book, start from the beginning, swatch and practice a little bit of those foundational techniques, because you may have, already, let's say, because I've got the book in front of me, but you may have already gone through the instructional part of this book where it tells you, how to handle your watercolor control or how to mix color. And then by the time you get to the end of the book, which I hope you've painted all the projects with me, you're a different artist. You have developed your skills. You have put into practice multiple times the things that I share in the book. So sometimes you go back to the beginning again with a different approach, with a different understanding of the materials, with a different understanding of the techniques. So there are some things that you'll pick up that will maybe create that aha moment where you're like, oh, that's why I can't get that, gradation of color, because I haven't added enough water to the mix, or I haven't blended it the way that Nicki describes. So when you've taken a class and you've had an opportunity to practice, going back to the basics allows you to go back with a more experienced eye, a more experienced hand, and maybe you'll understand the information a little bit differently to help push you even further in your personal art practice. Okay, so two approaches. You can look at creating have some fun, which is what I did today with sharing some new art supplies with you and talking about, and I didn't even bring up brushes, but we'll save that for another video, but talking about the different types of art supplies that you are using on a daily basis, maybe bring in some new things, but then going back to your practice and thinking about ways that you can up level, create some ease, and maybe a little bit more intention with colors you want to mix, or textures, or effects, or even things like you want to sell your art. So, what does that end user experience looks like by painting on substrates that allows your buyer to hang the art, to not have to frame it so much. So when I think about bringing in these art supplies, I'm thinking about so many different things. So to end, if you are shopping for new art supplies, do some research, shop in person if you can. Being able to look at colors and to be able to touch and hold the products, I think, make a difference. If you have questions, as always, drop in the comments below. Feel free to send me an email, Nicki@lifeidesign.com. If you are looking for a new class, I have a lot of great options when it comes to painting botanicals and landscapes and even abstracts. If you are a paper book person like myself, then grab a copy of Watercolor Made Simple. It's available worldwide and wherever books are sold pretty much, which is exciting. Again, I have lots of new projects on the go that I'll be sharing with you in the next little while, just to help again support you in your art process and your art journey, so that you can paint more and explore and enjoy. And I feel like now we need it even more. So thank you for spending this time with me. If there's anything that you got excited about that I showed you, let me know in the comments. And if you have any questions about specific art supplies, watercolor is my forte, but I paint in everything from acrylic to oil, charcoal, you name it. Let me know so that I can create another video like this and pull some of my favorite products as well. So remember, this is not a sponsored post. Everything that I showed you is stuff that I have bought and would buy again. And if you do want to purchase anything that I share, I will hopefully have everything on that Amazon list. And I will get a commission if you purchase through that list. So thank you. And thanks for being here. If you like this video, remember to give it the double thumbs up. Subscribe so you get notified of new videos to come. And again, let me know in the comments what you'd like to see more of next time. Happy painting.